The ground in the Philippines is moving again. Sensors are detecting rapid uplift along the same faults that triggered past disasters. In the next 60 seconds, you will see the exact zones where pressure is building and why scientists believe a major event is approaching. This region has already produced the most destructive eruption of the 20th century and quakes that tore cities apart. If the current deformation accelerates, the first sign will be destruction. The ground is shaking again in the Philippines. Beneath a land of palm trees and coral reefs, something ancient is always moving. To millions who live there, this archipelago is home, a paradise scattered across the Pacific. But to the planet itself, it is a fracture zone, a place where continents collide and the Earth remakes itself in fire and stone. The Philippines rests at the heart of the Pacific Ring of Fire. 40,000 kilometers of volcanoes, faults, and deep ocean trenches that mark the boundaries of tectonic plates. Here, paradise and catastrophe coexist. For centuries, the islands have risen and fallen on the pulse of the Earth. Every mountain, every bay, every fertile valley exists because the planet once tore itself open. And when it happens again, the effects can be global. This is the story of those moments, when the sea boiled, when the ground split, and when an entire nation learned to live on the edge of creation. It begins in the year 1991. For almost 600 years, Mount Pinatubo had slept beneath the forests of Luzon. No one alive remembered it as dangerous. Then, one morning, faint tremors began to ripple through the valleys. Villagers noticed steam rising from cracks near the summit. Scientists from Volcanoes arrived with instruments, unsure whether this was a passing disturbance or a true awakening. The data left no doubt. The mountain was swelling. Magma was rising. The sleeping giant was preparing to erupt. By June, the air smelled of sulfur and the sky above the crater shimmered with heat. On June 15, 1991, Pinatubo exploded. The eruption tore the summit apart, sending a column of ash nearly 40 kilometers high. The sound was heard hundreds of kilometers away. A typhoon swept through at the same moment, mixing torrential rain with falling ash. The result was chaos. Roofs collapsing under the weight of wet debris, villages buried in mud and fire, rivers transformed into torrents of lahar, volcanic mudflow that would continue for years. More than 800 people died, hundreds of thousands lost their homes, and the landscape of central Luzon was changed forever. Yet Pinatubo's reach went far beyond the islands. The eruption released millions of tons of sulfur dioxide into the stratosphere, creating a global haze that reflected sunlight back into space. For nearly 2 years, Earth's temperature dropped by half a degree. Sunsets turned blood red across the world. It was proof that a single mountain on one small island could influence the planet's climate. From the ashes of disaster, a new lake filled the crater, still and beautiful, a reminder that creation and destruction are inseparable. 3 decades later, another volcano reminded the nation that the danger never truly fades. Taal volcano, just south of Manila, had long been a tourist attraction. It sits in the middle of a lake, a volcano within a volcano, its slopes dotted with villages and fishing boats. But on January 12, 2020, the lake boiled. Dark plumes rose from the crater, and within hours, explosions hurled ash 9 miles into the sky. Lightning flashed through the column, illuminating the clouds in violent bursts. Ash fell on rooftops 100 kilometers away. Manila's skyline vanished behind a curtain of gray. Thousands fled through choking air, faces covered with cloth as the sound of thunder echoed across the water. By nightfall, the once calm landscape looked like another world. Taal did not kill on the scale of Pinatubo, but its eruption showed how fragile life can be when nature decides to move again. Volcanoes capture attention because they are visible. Their fury paints the sky. But in the Philippines, the most terrifying moments often come from below, unseen and silent, until the ground itself begins to convulse. The country straddles multiple fault systems: the Philippine Fault, the Dig Fault, and the Valley Fault that runs beneath Manila. Each is capable of releasing the kind of energy that can tear cities apart. On July 16, 1990, at 4:26 p.m., Luzon learned that lesson in a single minute. A deep, grinding sound rose from the ground. At first it felt like a heavy truck passing. Then the earth began to twist. Buildings swayed violently. Roads cracked open. Power lines snapped. The shaking lasted only 45 seconds, but it felt endless. Centered near the town of Rizal in Nueva Ecija, the quake measured magnitude 7.8. The energy released was equivalent to thousands of atomic bombs. In Baguio City, hotels folded like paper. Schools and factories collapsed. A 6-story building known as the Hyatt Terraces crumbled, trapping hundreds. The mountain resort, once peaceful, became a maze of dust and screams. Rescuers clawed through rubble with bare hands as aftershocks rippled through the night. Helicopters could not land because the roads were destroyed. Landslides blocked every approach. Entire neighborhoods were cut off from the world. In Cabanatuan, a school building fell during afternoon classes. Teachers shielded students as walls collapsed around them. Stories of survival and loss filled the nation's airwaves. By the end, more than 1,600 people were dead, thousands injured, and more than 1 million displaced. It was one of the darkest weeks in Philippine history. But the earthquake also changed the future. Engineers rewrote the National Building Code. Schools began holding annual earthquake drills. The phrase, "the big one," a future quake expected near Manila, entered everyday conversation. Even now, 35 years later, the memory of 1990 lives on. Children learn about it in class. Survivors still describe the sound, a deep roar that seemed to come from inside the planet. The Luzon earthquake became a defining trauma, one that shaped how the nation prepares for every disaster that followed. Yet Luzon was not the only region to suffer. In the far south, another catastrophe had already written its name in sorrow. On August 17, 1976, a magnitude 8.1 earthquake struck beneath the Celebes Sea near Mindanao. Within minutes, massive tsunamis slammed into coastal villages. Entire communities were swept away before dawn. More than 8,000 people were killed, tens of thousands injured or missing. It was the deadliest natural disaster in Philippine history, yet in the era before social media, the world barely noticed. Those who survived rebuilt in silence, their stories carried only by memory. Decades later, the ground would shake again. On October 15, 2013, a magnitude 7.2 earthquake struck the island of Bohol in the central Visayas. Historic churches dating back to the Spanish colonial era crumbled into dust. Bridges twisted, and a new fault scarp rose from the earth, a raw, jagged wound stretching for kilometers. More than 200 people died. The quake arrived without warning, reminding a new generation that the threat had never left. Through every century, this cycle repeats. Volcanoes erupt. Earthquakes shatter. The pattern is relentless because the mechanism never stops. Beneath the Philippines, the Pacific Plate dives under the smaller Philippine Sea Plate. The friction builds pressure, and that pressure must be released. Sometimes as magma, sometimes as a sudden slip along a fault. It is the machinery of creation itself. The same process that destroys towns also forms mountains, islands, and soil rich enough to feed millions. To scientists, the archipelago is a natural laboratory. To the people who live there, it is home, beautiful, dangerous, and alive. They adapt in ways the rest of the world can learn from. Homes are built with lighter materials that can sway during tremors. Evacuation drills are common in schools. Fishermen near Taal and Mayon watch the color of the water and the smell of the air for signs of change. Survival here is both science and instinct. Resilience, however, does not erase fear. Every rumble from the earth carries memory. When Mayon glows at night, people think of Pinatubo. When a tremor shakes a classroom, parents remember Luzon 1990. When the sea recedes unexpectedly, elders recall the Moro Gulf. The nation lives in constant dialogue with its planet. And yet, there is beauty in that danger. Stand at the edge of Pinatubo's crater today, and you'll see turquoise water shimmering beneath white cliffs of ash. Listen closely, and you might hear the faint hiss of gas escaping from the depths. the earth exhaling after its rage. Nature rebuilds as quickly as it destroys. Forests return, rivers find new paths, and people reclaim the land, planting rice where lava once flowed. The Philippines is not a passive victim of its geology. It is a testament to adaptation, proof that life can flourish on shifting ground. But scientists warn that more upheavals are coming. Taal still shows signs of gas release. Mayon inflates slowly, its magma chamber refilling. The Philippine fault continues to accumulate stress. And somewhere beneath the Pacific, another submarine volcano stirs unseen. The next eruption or earthquake is not a matter of if, but when. When that moment arrives, satellites will capture the first plume of ash, sensors will record the first tremor, and cameras will broadcast the chaos. But amid the noise, one truth will remain. These islands are alive because the planet beneath them is alive. Every eruption is a breath, every quake a heartbeat. The Philippines exists not in spite of these forces, but because of them. Beneath paradise lies the raw machinery of creation. Fire becomes land, destruction becomes renewal. And every generation of Filipinos learns again that their homeland stands between beauty and danger, peace and chaos, life and the deep shifting earth. Stay curious, stay aware. This is Seismosphere.